Je t'envoie le mail sur... Ah, connecte sur ton Gmail. Sur ton Gmail. Je t'envoie par email. Tu peux...
T'as un truc pour charger?
Ouais. Tiens. Ok. Je te balance ça par email. Ça, voilà, c'est tout. Non, va sur ton Gmail à toi. Sinon, de ton portable, tu peux le faire.
Envoie-le-moi sur iCloud. C'est bon, je l'ai.
Dis-moi, iCloud.
Non, c'est bon, c'est guillaume.fightgoal@icloud.com.
C'est parti. Hello, everybody. Everybody can hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, we can. Okay. Now the quality is much better.
Right. Yeah. There's no feedback.
There's no feedback as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yes, finally. Okay. There we go.
Hi, I think we're just about ready to start. I have 1 minute, so just testing that everybody can hear me. And we're about to start. I have... Okay. So I think we're going to kick off. Good morning, good evening. Well, actually, it's morning for everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's a huge honor and privilege to be your navigator for this conversation. It's a very special day, wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves at this time. I'm Lungi Morrison. I'm a curator and creative director based in Accra, but from South Africa. I have the privilege and pleasure of moderating this session. And it really is a 67 minutes in communion as a cultural creative industry and conversation as we reflect on Tata Madiba Ronikhahla Mandela, whose birthday it is today and who the United Nations recognized by declaring this day Mandela Day. And the sort of importance of each of us taking time, 67 minutes, which is 67 years he dedicated to social justice issues around the world, and particularly, of course, in South Africa. So without further ado, I would just like to give an overview of what the structure of the panel will be. So we have this brief introduction, and I'll introduce the panelists. And then we'll have some opening remarks from our founder and the convener of the session, all the way from Cannes in Paris, Manyatta Talks. He's doing such incredible work in this space, also a businessman in a sports entertainment. He will give some opening remarks, and then we had a clip, but we're not going to play a clip, so we have a little bit more time for conversation. And I will pose a few questions to the panel, and following which we'll have a Q&A and some final closing remarks from the panelists. And we will have then a vote of thanks from my dear friend Liruo, who will give us a closing remarks. So having said that, I will, with Bafna, introduce the few people I know on the panel, and then I will also hand over for him to introduce other people that I'm not so familiar, as we had a few changes at short notice. So welcome to Mr. Sam Mensah, who is the founder of Kisua. Kisua in Swahili means well-dressed person. And I think that's befitting this panel, which is dedicated to the cultural creative industry. Mr. Mensah is on the mission to dress people around the world in African-inspired attire, which I think is fantastic. He previously worked as a banker in Shell Capital, and has also worked for Deutsche Bank. We also have Liruo, who is a dear friend of mine, and I would call her Pan-Africanist champion for the cultural
Someone needs to mute.
industry. Yes, please. Sorry, if you wouldn't mind muting it while we have conversation. Laurent, could we ask you to mute if you don't mind? Thank you, thank you. And Larua is in South Africa. She runs a multimedia radio station and is an incredible advocate and Pan-Africanist who inspires me through and through. Bafnak, if I can hand over to you to introduce our other esteemed guests, and then you can go ahead and do the introductory remarks. Thank you very much. I think he's speaking. BP? Over to you.
Hello,
BP.
that's fine. Guys, first of all, thank you all, because it was really last minute, and we have, like, I would say, it was really last minute thing, and I spoke to Leruo to do it, and she said, no, I know somebody better. But technically everybody who's over this panel, which is like very intimate, because it's more like a pilot. And the good thing is in South Africa, you know, I know that some people are not going to be happy because South Africa.
Someone needs to mute. There's a lot of background noise.
Background, hold on. Okay. Yes. And then I'm just finishing quickly, and then I jump to I'm gonna let you speak because I want you to. The people who are on this panel are the people who are very knowledgeable in everything that they do. So the reason why I decided to do this, Spike was around, and I just thought about Nelson Mandela's movies and everything that he did. So I say, let's do it. Just 1 hour, and hopefully it's gonna be the start of something that we're gonna do every year all together. And so everybody who is on this panel are people that I really have a lot of respect, admire for all their achievements. And I'm also learning a lot from them. So that's the reason why I'm not going to talk a lot, and I'm going to let you handle the whole thing. And to have Samuel Mensah on it was really important because of what he did with Kiswa. And it's important that I support him at all levels that I can. So I'll let you go, and let's run the show.
Thank you very much, VP. I think what we will do is also have the guests in the panel introduce themselves before we, as you give your contributions. But really, this is an opportunity to identify and underline the intersection between film, fashion, design, music, literature, and all the cultural aspects, the creative industry, from at least in Africa and the diaspora, afford us to continue this important work of social justice, impact, economy, and the developmental aspects that Madiba so rightfully represented and fought for. So I think it is hugely imperative that we couch and this conversation in the ethos of all of that, and that each of you as industry leaders and captains of industry where you are, continue this work so beautifully. So if I may, I would like to sort of really just jump onto the first question. And as you make your contributions, please do introduce yourselves, and we will make note so that we gather the data and can collect your CVs for future conversations. So the first question that I'd like to put to the panel, and as we speak, please mute while the floor is open for the speaker. I would like each of you to give us a reflection on how you remember Madiba as a person in the creative industry yourself, or from the industry where you come from. What are some key aspects that connect you to Madiba? You can either put your hand up or unmute your mic if you want to to speak and introduce yourselves, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I'll get going. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this is Sam Mensah. I'm the founder and CEO of Kisua, a contemporary African fashion brand, and also the founder of an e-commerce platform, ananse.com, for African creatives. Thank you for convening this panel. I know it was short notice, but it's great for us as a group of friends and acquaintances to get together on this day for a few minutes to talk about Madiba, his life, what it means to us, and really use it as a reminder for what we should be doing every day to make our world a better place and to do our part. So in terms of what Madiba means to me, I think Madiba, aside from him being a global icon, a statesman, a former president, a former prisoner of conscience and of injustice, I think on a personal level, Madiba represents for me all that is good about humanity. Here was a man who made the ultimate sacrifice and was prepared to give his life, if necessary, for not just himself and his family, but for an entire people, for an entire nation. And then he led by example. He, after many years in incarceration, came out of jail and led his country and was the ultimate forgiver, considering everything that he had gone through. So as an inspiration, as a source of selfless humanity, there aren't many examples in the world like Nelson Mandela, and ultimately on a personal level, that is what inspires me about Madiba, of course, this is a conversation about creatives and how Madiba has inspired the creatives. I'll let people talk about, creative. Madiba's inspired films. He's inspired musicals. He's inspired clothing. He's inspired artworks. He's inspired so much. But for me, I think fundamental to what Madiba fought for was a better life for all people, a better life for the marginalized, a better life for the oppressed, a better life for the poor. And we're still grappling with this. We're still grappling with this across the world, across Africa, and here in South Africa. So whilst we have this conversation, I'm sure you're all aware of the recent riots in South Africa, which is, I'm Ghanaian, but I live in South Africa. These pictures have been splashed all over the world. And at the root cause of all of this is systemic poverty, dehumanizing poverty. And once you have that, all you need is a spark, and that's what we've got happening here in South Africa these last few days. But it's not just a South African problem; it's to a large extent an African problem as well. And so as we have this conversation about creatives, it's important to look at how we use the creative industries to empower young people, empower women, empower the economically disenfranchised, and use, as part of Madiba's legacy, use the creative industries and what he represents to also provide, in addition to social justice, also provide economic justice. So I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you so much. That was really, really powerful, Sam. If I could invite Ms. Crawford to go ahead and give your contributions. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm greeting everyone from the United States. I'm up early this morning to embrace this panel, to embrace the opportunity to speak to everyone. Madiba to me was everything. He empowered every single aspect of life. Most of all, he had a light in his heart. When you read about him and they say, well, how much do you contribute to philanthropy? How much do you contribute to art? How much do you contribute to science? He contributed the ultimate to all of that because he gave his life for it. What we're doing today is what he wanted to continue. This is his legacy: strategic partnerships, exchange of information, strategic networks in pursuit of whatever's needed for humanity. I had the opportunity to visit his home, meet with him on several occasions, etc. I raised money for the Mandela Trust, and I've created the Motherland Trust, which you'll see launching the end of this year. And I want an opportunity to partnership with the people on this line, because what the Motherland Trust does is it gives people an opportunity to show their wares, show their products, show their services, show their commodities on a global level. You can have the best product in the world, best service in the world, but if no one knows about it, it doesn't do any good. And if you're trying to sell it only internally to Africa, that doesn't help the economy. You need other people, you need the world to buy it. So this way, there's a fulfillment house, there's money for technology, there's money for marketing and branding, etc. And all the indigenous communities have to do is make the product, offer the service, because you have a lot of people coming globally to rape Africa. They take what's good and then they leave, and the resources don't come back in. The money doesn't come back in. And that's art, fashion, music, et cetera, et cetera. They appropriate a lot of it. And so what I would like to see through the Motherland Trust is an opportunity where a percentage of everything that's made goes back into Africa, so that the actual owner of the idea makes the money, but also a percentage goes back into their community, whether it's for underprivileged house or homeless people or feeding people or et cetera. So I've created this document, and then I took it out to get investment in it, because just talking among ourselves won't do it. You need a lot of money to do this. So I am honored and really, really pleased to be a part of this. I really want to thank BP for pulling this together. It should be an annual event, but it shouldn't be an annual event where it goes down a black hole. It stops here and we're talking to each other, because a lot of times people have meetings to have meetings. They meet to meet, to beat their chest. That's a waste of my time. I don't want to do that. If we're going to meet, let's meet with a deliverable, and the deliverable at the end has to generate revenue, because money speaks. And so that's what I do. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm L. Marilyn Crawford. I am the founder of Windsor Primetime. We do business sometimes as Primetime Pops. We've done major events all over the world. I've been involved in everything from planning, organizing, executing, promoting, branding, some initial part of that of the Olympics, World Cup Soccer, Musée National, 3 presidential inaugurals, Bush, Clinton, and the ambassador inaugural for Gore, interfaith services, children's festivals, New Year's Eve festivals, etc. I'm about to do a lot of things with Vancouver in Canada, and I've done things all over the world. My thing is, once you do something, leave the legacy to do something else. So I'm going to stop now and let everybody else participate. But like I said, we come together, and let's come together with a purpose. Let's take the next step. And bottom line is the world runs on revenue. You can have the best heart in the world, but you got to raise the money in order to enact the business. And to me, Mandela was about heart. He was about strategy. He was about business, and he was a thinker. And every step had a reason. And that's what people have to realize. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Crawford. That's so powerful. And I think it's something that lends to the conversation as we progress, because it really is about active citizenship and this idea that the creative economy or the creative community is often, poor artists, and we need to debunk that. We need to create generational wealth. And Africa's cultural creative industry, including the diaspora, are our lowest hanging fruit. People are weaving and painting and dancing and making music and sewing and designing. And so with all of those in our hands, we need to absolutely, thank you for the inspiration to continue this work of connecting and collaborating and creating, economy and economic development, which addresses social injustice. Thank you so much.
Can I say one other thing, which is very interesting about the arts, because I just ran into this problem the other day. Africa does have the most exquisite dancers, the most exquisite singers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I ran into and I won't say the name because I don't want to cause any international problem, but I ran into a person who basically is an agent. And that agent went to Africa and picked up like maybe 50 to 100 of Africa's talented people. That agent gets all of the money, is in America, distributes the money within his family, which are none, not people of color, let me put it that way. And it's just gotta stop. It's just that we have to educate our kids. Don't sign these 360 contracts that when they do something, even if the dancer decides to wear a t-shirt, that person gets a percentage of the money. And so that's what I hope Motherland Trust will do. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Thank you. Can I invite somebody else on the panel? Leroy, would you like to give us a little bit of an overview of what Mandela means to you as a person on the continent? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leroy Dichaba from South Africa. I'm in media. I would love, or I always tell people that, I'm a storyteller. I'm very passionate about owning the African story or the narrative of the African story. We hardly ever tell our own stories. We always wait for other people to come, tell stories about even Mandela, so my passion in this life is to tell African stories through our own voices. Mandela means a lot of things, a lot of people would say he's an advocate for peace, for freedom, for women's rights. But personally, for me, he's a symbol of hope and self-sacrifice. He's a reminder that anything is possible. He's a reminder that, we are capable to be our own Mandelas in our own little corners. We don't have to go to prison for 27 years, but we have, the capacity to do the very little that we can in our own very corners. We have the capacity to be, a light in our own corners. We are on this earth for a particular purpose. And so for me, he's a reminder that, find your purpose, do what you're here to do, touch lives, inspire, and aspire. That's what he means to me.
Thank you so much. I'm so just touched with all the conversation that's going. I think we have Mr. Mpandi. Sorry, I'm calling you individually just so that we have the sequence and your attention is we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Wellington.
Yes, sorry. I am Wellington Mpandi, and actually a business associated guy, and I work with Paul. I'm not exactly in the arts and creative industry, but I'm a business person focusing mainly in diamonds and gemstones in Africa. So my interest in this is basically trying to listen to this and find out if the creatives who are part of this conversation are able to actually work more on creating more content to reinvigorate Mandela's legacy, because we're facing a generation of millennials and younger people who actually don't see the value or don't see the struggles that Mandela went through to actually take us to where we are at the moment. They think differently. They think Mandela wasn't what the media portrays him to be, but I think otherwise. And I think the best way to actually reinvigorate that, and the best strategy to keep his legacy going in what he's done for the people of Africa, South Africa, and being the beacon of hope for the whole world is through creation of content, through entertainment. And as a business person, I am there to support, to sustain, and to give the creative support to go ahead and create more content for actually keeping his legacy going.
Great, thank you. And then finally from Jennifer, I know that some of you are not are sort of listening in, but it'd be nice, I guess, to just make this quite an open initial platform to contribute, and then we'll focus specifically on the panel with some of the other questions. So Jennifer, if you're welcome and open to just giving us an overview of what inspires you about Madiba before we continue. Thank you. I'm not sure if Jennifer is online, so we'll continue. Thank you so much. I think that these reflections are absolutely, central to why we're here and what it is that this day represents. It's a day, that we, as you've all said, inspires us to reflect and be the change we wish to see. Another person who I think is central to this conversation and what I understood to be why we're gathered is also the iconic producer, filmmaker, Mr. Spike Lee, who this year has been recognized as the president of the Cannes Film Festival jury. So that again is an indicator of just how powerful this industry is and the impact of storytelling in terms of the films that Mr. Spike Lee has made over the years, one of which we know Madiba did a cameo. Over and above this, Mr. Spike Lee shows us the importance of an intersection between film. He created an apparel brand, 40 Acres and a Mule, which was one of my favorites growing up. He also is involved in music and really for me champions Black culture. I wondered if I could ask then if the panels would give us some input on what your reflections are on the role that Mr. Spike Lee has played in Black culture through his film, his apparel brands, music, and how you see the sort of relation between his work and the work of Madiba, and also, of course, the fact that Madiba, featured in an important film like Malcolm X, which is almost 30 years old this year. So BP, maybe to you, firstly, what are your thoughts around the impact that Spike Lee has created in the creative industry, and what lessons we can learn from this?
So that's the question that I've been asked a lot, because this year was very special, Cannes Film Festival, because the first time Spike Lee came to Cannes Film Festival was in '86, and that was the first time that I saw him on TV. I would have never thought that 30 years later I'll be with him as the president of the jury. And what happened is I was 11 years old at night watching TV. It was my first time seeing a Black person just being proud of his roots, of his culture. And technically, sorry for my language, I don't give a damn about who you are. I'm just gonna speak my mind, whether you like it or not. So coming from a background, which is African Francophone, or with all the post-colonialism thing, and you look at the white men like gods, so people are afraid to say something. You have somebody right there who just like speak his mind, whether you like it or not. And as you know, the logo of 40 Acres and a Mule ends by any means necessary. And what happened to me is the next thing that happened, I learned so much from that interview that I end up spending more time in library trying to figure out what this guy is talking about, not knowing that he was just empowering me. And one day in Paris, I was on my way to New York. I missed a flight from Paris to New York. He was on the same flight. He missed his flight as well. And I admiring him. I was so in admiration to him that I didn't want to go and talk to him. And everybody was rushing to him, photos and autographs and all that. And I just walked away. to go to change my ticket. And as I enter Air France, he's in front of me changing his ticket as well. And I was in the back, and all I did, I just took another piece of paper. I just wrote, "Dear Mr. Lee, thank you very much. I'm very honored. And I just want to let you know that your movies really impacted my youth. Thank you." I folded and I dropped it by him and I walked away. He read it and said, "Hey, come here." And now that's how we are where we are today. And that's also through him in 2018 that I met Marilyn in the lobby, actually, randomly. And she was among the few Black person around. And that's probably that really
Very few, very few.
That's the only reason, because a Black person, let's connect. And what happened is, actually the funny thing, not the funny thing, but I was at Mama Winnie's funeral in Soweto when Spike sent me an email saying, "Hey, I have the dates for Cannes." And that's how I flew to be there, not knowing that he would be getting the whole thing. And then Maureen and I met there and we just clicked. And actually, you know, I'm gonna tell you something. 2 days ago, it was like the mother, like, "Hey, you gotta go better than that. Don't sell yourself short." I was like, I thought my mother was dead, but this one, you know. So, and then, you know, being here, I just told myself that even in Cannes, to be honest with you, and I told Leroy as well, I said, next year, we all have to be here. Spike opened the door for a lot of conscious people who can really say what they think. And trust me, they're gonna yes. And what happened today, this morning, Vincent Lindon, who won the Palme d'Or yesterday, I just happened to be at the breakfast at the Majestic, you know Majestic. And I was wearing this thing with Spike on the back. And that was made in Maboneng by Snow Chino, a street artist. So I couldn't believe that Vincent Lindon, who won the Palme d'Or, "Hey, you know Spike?" I was like, "Hey, you the Palme d'Or, and you ask me if I know Spike?" And the thing is, he didn't know how he said, "I don't know how to get hold of him. I don't know how I can speak to him. I think I have to tell him." And I was with Lawrence and her husband, you know, my people from Lyon. And we were surprised. I said, how come he just won the Palme d'Or and he doesn't know how to get hold of Spike? Wait. And I will send you through WhatsApp later. He said, and I asked him, "Do you want me to do a video? I'm gonna send it to him." He said, "Yeah, I really want to, I have something to tell him." And he was just uploading what Spike did. He just said, "Hey, this film they were able to win the Palme d'Or because of the work of the actors. So they have to come on stage to get their thing." And that gesture of Spike, he couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe that this guy is Palme d'Or and he couldn't find somebody in the all Cannes Film Festival system to allow the easiest thing, which is just meeting with the president. So technically what it says to me is, you know, this little panel that we put together, because I'm the only one on that thing. And I would say Laura is behind it because she's the one who connected me to Lungi, and Dr. Mze Fulangenge, who introduced me to Wellington. So we all interconnected without knowing each other. And today, the person that gets us together is Mandela and Spike Lee. And by saying, by any means necessary, it doesn't mean that you are anti-white or you're going to do violence. That means that we can come together by any means necessary. And the business savvy side of Marin, for instance, that, hey, we have to monetize, we can make money, and we will make money altogether. There's no shame on being profitable. So talking about the movie Malcolm X, Mandela in the movie, we're in Paris last week with Spike, and I told him exactly what happened in that movie and the genius that he had putting Nelson Mandela at the end of the film, because we're in France when we went to see the game, the film. It's my first time watching a film in a theater with police and dogs inside. Trust me, Black people in France were really angry. The few white people who were there in the theater, and a few of them were my white friends, they were freaking out. They thought that they are going to be killed at the end of the movie. And I can promise you, you can feel the tension during the whole movie. The air was tense. We all believe that at the end of the movie, the white people there are going to be whooped. And at that time, boom, the school thing. And as soon as Madiba appeared, you can feel the atmosphere all down. And everybody walked peacefully out of the theater with no hate, no trying to want to kill anybody. And I told him, I say, that was genius, because if you didn't put Madiba at the end, we would have witnessed riots in France. And that's how powerful the film can even send emotions, And on top of that, and I'm gonna wrap up on that and let somebody, the special guest just showed up, is that Chinua Achebe said something very, very strong. Until the lions have their own historians, history of hunts will keep glorifying the hunters. Now we are the hunters and we're the lions. So we have, to me, the biggest human and civil rights icon, to me, the all-time one remains Malcolm X, unapologetically. He's not a sellout. He fought for everything, and he got killed because he was bringing the all America together as one. And that was the most dangerous Malcolm X. The one before, he was not that dangerous as the one that they killed. And I hope through us coming as Africans and people from African descent, I hope that we'll be able to influence our governments and our organizations to rewrite, not to rewrite, but to have another Malcolm X movie, but that would insist on Malcolm X the Pan-Africanist. Before George Floyd and African Union get on the fact that the diaspora and Black people worldwide must be concerned with what's going on in America, when Malcolm X went to Ethiopia to talk to the African Union about the importance that we have to come together, that was way before the AU decided to step up when George Floyd got killed. And we need you guys in the creative space to put that agenda. Samuel Mensah, what he did with Kiswa and honoring all those freedom fighters, I'm just like, wow. And we need that. And it's possible. I think it's possible. So, and I'm a fierce believer that the future of the African continent is our women. And empowering us to understand them, that they need us more than we need them. Actually, I want to say that we need them more than they need us. And all those things, like, and I have a hard time understanding this thing about gender and inclusion, simply because I had a mother, and I also have 4 sisters, and she wasn't making any discrimination. You cook, clean, like everybody in the family. So there is no I don't gonna sugarcoat you because the only son. No, you're gonna have to do everything. And
Thank
like
you.
what's her name?
These are-
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said
Yeah.
that why a man must and should know how to cook.
Mm.
If he can't feed himself, why should he expect a woman to be there for him? And she was right.
Yeah.
So I know I talk a lot, so I have to stop.
Thank you so much, Vivi. I think
And
in
introduce
this,
you.
these 67 minutes are absolutely about this, is storytelling. I think that you've touched on agency, empowerment, the visionary, aspects of storytelling that Mr. Spike Lee has showed by including Madiba at the end of the film, but an unapologetic self-belief in what it means to be African. I think we're seeing this agency as we are spread across the world, over and above being 54 nation states on the continent, we have the 6th region of Africa, which is our diaspora, which is all of you spread across different parts of the world. And so I think the agency that you speak to in terms of the coming together of Africans around the world and on the continent is critical to living out this legacy through the creative industry that we see. So Madiba's shirts, to the Madiba Jive, to the film contributions, all of this speaks to the power that Madiba saw in the creative industry, the power that Spike Lee has expressed through his work in apparel and film and music, and the power that each of you embody as creative people who represent or are in the business of the arts, to ensure that our stories are told, that the economies are developed, and that we empower our people to be the Madibas, as Leroy says, where they find themselves. So I think with that said, I want to kind of ask others for their contributions in terms of, what they see in what Mr. Spike Lee has done through his work in industry relative to the creative industry, but also, being a living sort of legend in the legacy of Madiba reflected in his work in many ways.
Well, he was groundbreaking. He basically, his creative engagement with the genre of documentary filmmaking that he tackled was exceptional. You said earlier, talking about Mandela and Spike Lee, really, Spike Lee is a part of Mandela's legacy and continued it on a different scale, relating more to that generation and including them in that generation. I just want to touch on one thing that BP said that I disagree with, and this is coming from a powerful executive woman who travels the world. I think women empowerment, when that came through, basically for white women, was great. But for Black women, we can't empower ourselves until we empower our men. So we have to be very cognizant of that. And even though I'm a businesswoman, I love taking care of beautiful Black men. And I think that we have to embrace that and lift them up in order to lift ourselves up. And that's with any society. You have hierarchies and the man is always up there. And I think we have to be a part of, not saying that we do anything to less empower women, but we have to make sure that our men are on top. But anyway, back to Spike Lee. He did it through a range of history and sports and music. And he tackled diversity of topics in such a nonfiction film like I think it was called The Four Little Girls, and then a Huey P. Newton story. He did Jim Brown, he did All American, etc. So there's a vast array of that. And so that each person in society, every generation can relate to it. So kudos to Spike Lee in becoming the president of the Cannes Film Festival, but that was long overdue. That was long overdue, and hopefully there will be many more people of color to get that position.
Thank you so much, Ms. Crawford. I just want to take a moment to welcome. We've just been joined by our wonderful Nigerian journalist, Madam Keita. Thank you so much for joining us on this panel. We appreciate your time, and I perhaps would like to welcome you to say a few words. We're reflecting on Madiba, as you know, but also celebrating Mr. Spike Lee for becoming the 75th, the president of the Cannes Film Festival, and underlying all of this is the importance of Africa's cultural creative industry, the role of the diaspora, and the collaborations that will grow us and develop us to continue the legacy of Madiba. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Keita. Sorry, you're on mute. Would you like to say a few words? I see you're online if you want to unmute yourself. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Ms. Keita, you're still on mute. We can't hear you. Could you just, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Do you hear me?
Ooh.
Yes, we can.
You hear me?
Oh, unfortunately, it seems the Wi-Fi is not so clear, so the line is a bit broken. Let's see one more time. Hello?
Yeah. I'm not in mute.
Okay, let's try now.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear me? No, it's a Wi-Fi. You don't?
We're so sorry about that. Perhaps if you went out.
Maybe try turn off your video.
Yeah.
And just leave the sound.
So perhaps if you turn off your video, as Sam said, and then use the sound, it might reduce the interference with the Wi-Fi, and then we'll come back to you if that's okay in a minute. Perhaps Sam, if you want to make some comments while we wait for Ms. Keita to secure her line. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think for me, the key thing about as a child like Bapna, watching Spike Lee movies.
Okay. Okay. Like that. Do you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Keita, it's a little bit better, but it's still a little, there's some interference. I don't know if there's anyone around who can assist, and perhaps you've turned, should I say hello? Let's hear if it's better now that your video is off.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, that's much better. Sorry, Sam, we'll allow Ms. Keita to say a few words and then come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, the floor is yours, Ms. Keita. Go ahead.
But it's could you translate sometime for me or no?
Unfortunately, the line is really bad. We're so sorry to not have you clearly. It's a real shame, but we hope perhaps in a few minutes you can come back. I'll just have to let Sam go ahead, please.
What did you say? What did you say?
We unfortunately don't have a clear line. The Wi-Fi is bad, so we will need to allow Sam to speak while we try and help you with your Wi-Fi.
I'm sorry.
Sam, do you want to go ahead and just
Yes.
send?
So like Bapna, and I'm sure like many of us, we grew up watching Spike Lee movies, black and white TVs, early 80s, late 70s, and then later on color TVs. And as a child growing up, the majority of films that we saw were made by white people, and the topics were typically not topics that were directly relevant or told the Black story or the lived Black experience. And also, there were not many big films that featured Black actors. So as a child growing up, I guess one of the most striking things about a Spike Lee movie was the fact that there were Black people in it, and there were Black people on your TV in a film, which was not that common back then. And the story was being told from a Black perspective, and he was also telling Black people's stories and the lived experience of Black people. And for a Black child, do not underestimate the power of seeing people like you on TV, people like you telling a story, people like you with a voice. And I think that when we now talk about, the creative industries and Madiba, I think it's the main lesson for me, for those of us in the creative space, whether it's film or music or fashion, in following in Spike Lee's footsteps with respect to content related to Madiba, is how we must stake our claim and how we must participate in the storytelling of Madiba's life and sharing our perspective as Black people with the world when it comes to Madiba. We must not be shy to claim that space. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Sam. That's absolutely critical. And I think we'll sort of get to the action steps, as Ms. Crawford highlighted, in terms of making the connection between the narrative and the storytelling to monetizing and to social development, which you indicated previously a part of the areas of deficit that we see not only in South Africa, but many parts of the continent. I don't know if, Madam Cater, how is your line now? Should we see if we have a better line to you?
I'm still there.
Thank you. It's much better. Thank you. Welcome. And we really appreciate you making the time. We're
Thank you.
happy to hear
Thank you
from
for
you.
having me. It's a great day today. Qu'est-ce qu'elle m'a demandé de dire, bah?
Elle demande que tu puisses partager comment Nelson Mandela et Spike Lee ont impacté, ou qu'est-ce que tu as à dire là-dessus et comment leur influence dans ta carrière en tant que femme africaine, filmmaker aussi.
Yes, oui. I think that they change, ils ont changé le monde. They change the world. And Spike Lee, for example, he made us discover the universe of the diaspora in the United States of America, to discover these wonderful people, beautiful people, and generous, like Angela Bassett, Denzel Washington, Wesley Snipes, all of them. We didn't know they exist. Our fathers or grandfathers, they knew, and then that's it. So this universe, to show how they are deeply African, and the world, and how they fight every day and every generation, and how they win every time. It's a hope for the world, And Mandela, it's the same thing. It's fighting through, maybe we can say through directly politics, but Spike Lee is politics too. And today, for example, I'm a Festival de Cannes. I'm a movie director, and I came from the festival. And yesterday was the Palmarès, which means the awards night. And really, all of us from Africa and the diaspora, we were proud of the palmarès, the awards, because it was just professional, very good films. You can like them or not, but you cannot say.
Unfortunately, sorry, madam, the line is bad again, and we just
Because
yes,
copinage,
yeah. Unfortunately, the line is bad again, so we'll have to. I can't mute from here, sadly. The line is bad. We have about 16 minutes left of the panel, and
you don't hear me?
no, we can't hear you, unfortunately, and I just need us to move on with a few more minutes left of the panel. We wanted to just capture a few more points. Thank you so much for your contribution. At this time, I'd like to invite Leruo from South Africa.
The line is bad. I know, maybe if you have the essential.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Leruo from South Africa to give us some contributions that are also reflective of the challenging times that we find ourselves in terms of the situation on the ground, the social injustices that have come, have been spread across the press lately, that there's a movement called This Is Not Us. And Leruo will give us an overview in terms of what's happening in South Africa and the movement that's begun to begin to turn things around. Thank you, Leruo.
Thank you, Lungi. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much around that movement. I've just been seeing the hashtags and a bit of conversation over social media, but it's very unfortunate, with what's been happening on the ground with regards to the looting and the killings, and it's heartbreaking considering where we've come from, as a nation, as South Africa, that we find ourselves in this situation where a few people in power just are playing literally with our lives and our futures. We are caught up in personal politics, in greed and all of that. But with the little knowledge that I know of the hashtag, I would like to believe that it's a reminder that this is not who we are. Knowing who we are as a rainbow nation, as a nation of Ubuntu, Botu, people of humanity. You are because I am, with that understanding that I am nothing without you. I exist because you exist, which is a great value and principle that we have as South African. And it's a great reminder that, this is not who we are.
Thank you so much, Leruo. I'll share the link. Hopefully we can circulate and get everybody's details on this call and send you the link, which is a clip that was created by a good friend of ours, Kolisa, and his agency have created a link that just shows some of the riots, but also the overlay of Madiba's words that inspire change, and his call to action, which really highlights the fact that we need to be better, we should know better. And as Leruo has rightly said, Ubuntu invites us to tap into our interconnectedness. And I think, Leruo, something that comes to mind is also what, as Crawford has said, around how the importance of social inequity or conditions of poverty perpetuate these social injustices, and as we're seeing in South Africa. But how, from your perspective, do you see the cultural creative industry being used as a tool to empower people and to also restore dignity. I think there's something around the dignity piece that Madiba inspires, that hence, I mean, even his shirt, it seems quite trivial, but this idea that, you know, wearing a Madiba shirt, there's a dignity in being African, there's a dignity in buying African design that then creates an economic value or develops the economic value chain. So I think that maybe in the last, we have about 10 to 15 minutes, if each of you could sort of contribute some words or say something around how we can reduce fragmentation. And by that, I mean, you know, the fact that we're all in different parts and siloed, and how coming together, working together can begin to create opportunity for economic development on the ground, particularly on the continent. I don't know if either Ms. Crawford or Sam want to jump in on that. Sorry, do you want to unmute, please?
Oh, I said I definitely will, because I admire South Africa. I feel like when I visited, I was coming home. I'm very anxious for the current government to embrace the idea of transferring or engaging those less fortunate to make their own fortunes through the arts, because they do it every day. They're making their living and they're feeding their family on making a pocketbook or making a shirt or a poncho or a drawing or art or dancing for someone, but they're not monetizing it in a way that is generational wealth to help them change their lives. Your South African government came to America in New York and had 3 days of business meetings some years ago. I attended. I was very outspoken and I was talking about what I've all created by myself, the Motherland Trust. And they said, oh yeah, great, great, great. No one responded to follow up, no one. So I think we have to get the attention of the leadership and start there. And really it will help them as well as all South Africans to be able to elevate to a global stage and sell their commodities on a global stage without having the knowledge of technology and marketing and branding and the money to do so. There has to be a mechanism created to help them. So I forgot what the question was, but I'm very passionate about this. And I hope that we on this line will continue this effort, and not just meet to meet, but we'll take it to actionary steps that generate revenue, that address ills throughout the African society, and that give people in America and people across the globe and people in Africa hope. As the young lady said earlier, which is what Mandela stood for, hope. He put that hope into actionable terms for our future, and now we have to expedite. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have a few minutes left, and I know it feels rushed, but there's so many gems that have come out of today. One important piece that I want to throw before I finish and ask you to sort of give your closing remarks is the importance of Mama Winnie and her role in holding the nation together. We must always remember that, you know, Mama Winnie was on the outside when Madiba was jailed for all of those years, and she was at the coalface of all of the trauma and the troubles and keeping and holding the nation together. And even her role as a mother was, you know, arrested, if you like. So we want to honor Mama Winnie on this day as well. Whilst it's called Madiba Day, I think that as a woman, I wore my doek. And in South Africa, we call it a doek because on this day, it is Mandela Day, but as women, we honor Mama Winnie Mandela. And with those words, I want to personally thank you, but actually throw back to you to say some call to actions, if you like. And I will take note of those as Ms. Crawford has absolutely championed and inspired us to do. I will take note, call to actions, next steps, and fundamentally how this group can, and led by BAH-PNA, gather together and get ourselves to the next platform where we actually create the industry and the value chain that is active in the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Sam, final, or Leroy, sorry, go ahead. Final words.
Thank you so much, Lungi, and thank you also, for mentioning Mama Winnie.
Yes.
She played an incredible role in Mandela's legacy. She made sure that people did not forget the name Mandela. She made sure that people did not forget the face Mandela. At some point, Nelson Mandela's identity and face was banned in the country, but she would walk out, with a placard or whatever flyer of Nelson Mandela's face, reminding people who he is and the fact that we should never forget that he is imprisoned and fighting for our freedom. So thank you so much for that. In terms of the conversation that we're having today, I think, in a broader scale of things, we should really take a concerted effort to come together, to make sure that the creative industry is making money. Mandela and Africa as a whole, informs, culture, informs fashion, it informs music. I mean, currently Nigerian music is the biggest thing in the world. Our clothing, it inspires a lot of designers, your Pradas, your Louis Vuitton, and all of those,
Yes.
all of those people. But somehow we don't, we're not part of that value chain. And it has somewhat to do with the fact that we don't sometimes believe in ourselves and we don't take the creative industry seriously. It's a hobby still for most people, and even for government. The reason why they don't support it, they believe that it's not a strong enough industry to invest in. So there's a lot of education that still needs to go even to government to say, this is how much the creative industry makes, in a year, and this is how much it contributes to the economy. So we really need your support. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I actually
just to tap on what she said, if you look at how much people who make a lot of money off the arts appropriate Africa. I mean, look at the Kardashians. I mean, one of them wore cornrows one time and they were like, oh my God, she has this fabulous hairdo. I'm like, hello, the lip implants, the behind, the derriere, etc. Everybody wants to be us, but we don't embrace our own and we don't elevate our own. And you have to elevate from within first before you can do anything else. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about it. Go on.
Absolutely. And so before we get cut off, thank you. Those are all important contributions. Any final words from Sam and BP? And thank you so much, Ms. Crawford. We really need to take the baton from what you're saying and can make these connections. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so I think it's very important. So firstly, yes, thank you for tribute to Mama Winnie. The Mandela we know today would not exist without Mama Winnie. That is a fact. So, and she was instrumental in her own right, not just as a wife of somebody, but she is a leader, a freedom fighter, a champion of human rights and democracy and of women's rights in her own right. So we must never forget that. So thank you for
to the point of empowering your man. She allowed us to have the Mandela that we have. Winnie is absolutely empowered in her own sense, but without her, we wouldn't have Mandela.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to wrap up with just expanding on a couple of points that people have made. So in my organization, we work closely with the Nelson Mandela Foundation on Affordable 664, taking Madiba's legacy to a generation of young people, primarily, who were not alive and did not live through Madiba. And we do that through cool clothes and cool fashion. And we keep Madiba's legacy alive in that respect. But beyond just telling Madiba's story through fashion, we also ensure that the brand represents Madiba's values. And part of that involves economic empowerment of young people and disenfranchised communities. So we make sure, for example, that I'm wearing a 46664 Madiba hoodie, be the legacy. The cotton is made in Africa. The fabric is made in Africa, and the garment itself is made in Africa. So, we can't talk about, honoring Madiba and then making Madiba merchandise in China and creating jobs in China, rather than creating those jobs and giving opportunities to the young people here on the continent. So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is,
I'm so sorry to cut you off, Sam. I apologize. We don't want it to end abruptly, so we wanted to honor the 67 minutes, and we worry that if we continue, it might cut us all off. I really apologize. We really appreciate the contributions. And at this time, I just want to thank everybody on the call. The 67 minutes has been incredible. And we will get the details of everyone and make sure that we continue the conversations, because your contributions, each of you, are so crucial. And I apologize again about cutting you off. We just don't want to end.
And
go ahead.
Let's all wrap up, all hands all together. Put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up. So guys, it's all on our hands to make it happen for us at all levels. Thank you very much. And next year, we're all here in Cannes. We have to make it happen. Peace. Goodbye.
In the meantime, let's make every day a Mandela Day.
And a winning day as well.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, BP. Thank you, Roa.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.